And we're live. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another virtual event with Calyptus. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm really excited about this talk we had today with Nick Frosty. If you don't know who Calyptus is, we are leading career platform for developers wanting to get into Web3. Our mission is to help engineers land their dream job in Web3, but a huge part of that, of course, is education. This is our official launch party for our 12th Learn to Earn cohort, in which we give you the opportunity to become a Solana developer in 14 days. It is a serious bootcamp where you'll find 12 awesome projects from building your own token all the way through to building your own decentralized exchange. And it's the first 50 developers, the first builders to complete the curriculum win 40 USDT. We've been doing this for a while now, and I'm very happy to say that we've had 850 developers, 9,500 projects built. We think that you guys, if you're joining this cohort, you might be the ones to get us to 10,000 projects built on Solana. What an amazing response from the community. Hope you enjoy it too. In terms of experience, all you need is 1 year of coding, and you should be absolutely fine. But if not, we have our own DevRels in our Discord. Ask them. It's 7 days a week. We'll be able to help you get through that Solana journey. Now, to celebrate our 12th launch cohort, we have a very, very special guest here, Nick Frostbutter, DevRel at Solana, to talk to us all about Blinks, Solana's latest innovation that has blown up over the past couple of weeks. What it is, how it works, why it's a game changer for Web3 social. We have lots to get through. So guys, if you have any questions throughout whatsoever, please just chuck them in the chat and we'll try and get to them as and when they drop. That's it. Without further ado, Nick, hello.
GM, hello. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to chat today.
Yeah, it's great to have you here. How we usually start these calls is typically, because everyone's got their own story, how they got into the industry. I did a little bit of background into your own story. It's complete off the other end of the spectrum of the typical one into Web3, but would love to hear it from you. Can you tell us your Web3 story, how you got in here, how you became DevRel at Solana Foundation?
Yeah, sure. I, like most people that work full-time in the Web3 ecosystem, no matter what chain you're at, everyone's got a unique story, and mine is also unique. So I first discovered crypto back in high school. I'm a long time out of high school now. I remember when the Bitcoin white paper dropped. I remember reading about half of it. I understood some of it, and I remember mining Bitcoin on a laptop. Mined a couple, lost that laptop. Long story, as everyone says. And the whole idea of blockchain and cryptocurrencies has always fascinated me. Fast forward through life, I joined the U.S. Navy. I was in the active duty military for about 10 years, operating submarines and nuclear reactors on them, and eventually to a training simulator. And then I eventually decided to kind of shift into Web3. I actually got my job at the Solana Foundation because I replied to a tweet one day. Chase Barker, who is his title is was head of developer ecosystem at the Solana Foundation. I'd been following him for a long time, and was interested in trying to learn more and dive more into the Web3 side of development. And one day, Chase Barker posted a tweet of "Hey, who likes documentation? Who wants to help out?" And I replied with something to the effect of, "I like docs." And we started talking, and I started part-time doing some contractory type DevRel roles, helping with documentation and things, and eventually transitioned full-time to DevRel at the Solana Foundation. I've been full-time DevRel at Foundation for about 1.5 years now, and it's been great.
Well, I mean, just one single tweet can change your whole career path.
It's true.
Chase is a great guy. He's actually the one that he granted this whole curriculum for us. This is how we got grant funded by Solana. Chase was the last guy. I mean, it's awesome how just one thing can turn into becoming DevRel at Solana Foundation. And the things that you're building right now is getting more and more exciting. Of course, the most recent thing is Blinks, and that's what we're here to talk about. Can you please tell us a bit about, what are Blinks? And also, related to it, what are actions as well? Because I know they're associated.
Yeah, absolutely. They're very closely associated. Blinks it's blockchain links. Blinks is the cute short name for it. Great marketing term. I actually disagreed with it at first, but I was finally sold on it. But blockchain links, these blinks, are the idea that, you know, everyone that works in Web3 that uses blockchain, we all kind of inherently recognize that it really can be like the base layer of the internet. And blinks kind of bring that to the forefront of the user experience. It's being able to share a normal link to a normal website that you expect to be able to use, and sharing that across the internet, and having the full blockchain user experience brought to the user. So instead of bringing users to dApps, imagine bringing dApps to users. And so blinks are effectively like the front end side of this whole stack, if you will. Actions are the back end side of it. Because blinks are effectively rendering this user interface, this standardized user interface, to anyone who sees it and has these features enabled within their browser extension wallets, that they need to get that information, that metadata, to the user in order to display it. And that's where actions come in. Actions are basically an API backend that gives metadata like title, description, an image, and form type inputs like enter your email address, select an option from this dropdown kind of stuff. So it's providing this metadata as well as ultimately getting a signable transaction to the user where they already are. So actions are the back end, blinks are the front end, ultimately giving transactions to users where they're already at. And like right now, where everyone is able to experience blinks is pretty much solely on x.com on Twitter, where if you have this blink feature enabled within your browser extension wallets or using Dialect's dedicated extension, that you can have this rich user experience to interact with the dApps that you know and love directly in your Twitter feed or in your Twitter DMs. And it can basically bring crypto to where you're already at, and it really enhances the entire user experience and simplifies it too.
That's incredible. Yeah, so actually breaking it down as like actions at the back end and having blinks at the front end is a very kind of easy concept to kind of get your head around. I've seen that you're working with X, as you said. Are you moving into the likes of Discord as well, or is that on the path? What are the other social platforms that are, I suppose, on the trajectory?
Yeah, that's a great question. So yeah, right now just on x.com and pro.x.com. So if you have like a Twitter Pro account, you can get access there. But right now it is limited to Twitter. It is limited to x.com. We have big lofty goals, us, the Solana Foundation, and then Dialect as well, and all the assorted launch partners and partners that are, focused on bringing actions to the masses, blinks to the masses. It can really be anywhere though. Dialect has been doing amazing work on creating like standardized, easily usable SDKs for anyone to enable blinks. Right now, if you're a developer, you can actually enable blinks on your own website by using Dialect's SDK. I can't remember the package name, but it's their standard Blinks SDK, which is actually the exact same code that all the browser extensions use right now. So Phantom, Soulflare, and Backpack, they all use Dialect's SDK right now. And you can enable this on your own personal website or your own platform if you're building one. But then as far as like having it sort of generically enabled across the internet, we're pushing for more websites like YouTube, Twitch, and things like that directly within browsers that have the ability to use these browser extensions. And then to answer the other side of your question is Discord, Telegram, all these other actual like dedicated apps, mobile apps, other platforms. It's absolutely possible to do. It just needs someone to build it. There's a couple of organizations that are already building out implementations to be able to use blinks and actions directly within like a Discord bot or a Telegram bot. And I'm really excited to see when those launch.
I'm sure Chase will be signing off a few grants for either Discord or TG setting up for sure. I can see this kind of expanding so much further into all different social platforms. How did the idea almost come about? Like, what was the problem that was being solved? Like, what was the genesis? Like, who was behind the whole idea in the first place?
Yeah, that's another good question. The genesis, actually, this started roughly 2 years ago. at like the core of it. Solana actions are actually built on top of, or really a sort of a mutation of the original Solana Pay transaction request specification. So Solana Pay is a specification that's existed in the Solana ecosystem for about 2 years, and it's had this ability to basically have a standardized way to get a transaction to a user by making just a normal web request, just like an API works on pretty much across the internet. And it's always been heavily Solana Pay branded, a very payments focused user experience that just everyone gets to use, where you have this effectively one directional flow of tokens, or basically for the one use case of you're buying something, you're making a payment. So users get into this, and developers and builders get into this sort of mentality and flow of, oh, it's called Solana Pay, it's only for payments, that's all I can do. When realistically, you could still do any transaction that you could possibly do on the Solana network. And so there's, for a long time, there's a bunch of people who have tried to push like a rebrand, sort of imagination of what this could do. And there's a lot of conversations. There was never quite the right thing until eventually a couple of people kind of were just bike shedding on some ideas and riffing on ideas. And they came up with Actions as the name, Solana Actions as the name. And they had the realization that people already have these browser extensions already installed. There's actually someone from the Super Team Vietnam team who kind of brought up this idea that we already have these browser extensions. People already have them installed. They have their crypto wallets through them. Browser extensions have the ability to read data that's on the entire web page, because that's just how these browser extension wallets work. So they can already read data. They can already write data if they so choose. They don't, at the time, they really didn't. But with that idea, and that you can do anything with a Solana action or the Solana Pay transaction request, the combination of these two ideas put together was like, we could bring these actions to anyone across the internet that's already a crypto native person. They already have a crypto wallet. So that's kind of the inception there.
So it was Solana Pay. You guys realized that actually it doesn't have to just be monetary. It can be like NFTs or other kind of digital assets. It's just the innovating on sending things. And then also having this browser extension that gets it right in the hands of the user straight away. And you can link up the, it makes a lot of sense. I wanted to ask a lot about like, what are you seeing as the main use cases nowadays? Like if we're thinking about you can send or, create Blinks for anything, is it mainly trading tokens, trading NFTs? Like, is it, I don't know, tradable football cards or like rareable kind of esque vibe? But yeah, what are you seeing right now in terms of what's being traded and the activity?
Yeah, it's kind of, it's actually really across the spectrum there you've listed and more, because you can do with Blinks right now, you can do anything you can do a Solana transaction. Anything you can do within a Solana transaction, you can do within Actions and Blinks. So people have built all sorts of things that, like, honestly, like I hadn't even thought of. Like people have built entire games that are just within Blinks and Actions. Shout out to Magic Block. I believe their website's magicblock.gg. They're a gaming studio, and they're building some games. They're building infrastructure and tooling. And one of the Magic Block founders built a tug of war game directly within a Blink. You could tug left, you can tug right, the image updates, and you can just play this game. A couple of other people have built other games, like Spaceman Dev. He's built a couple of games as like proof of concepts, which is really interesting. People are doing e-commerce directly within Blinks. Good example of this is Keystone Wallet, one of the hardware wallets that supports Solana. They did they're selling physical products using Blinks. You see the Blink, you provide your email address, you sign the transaction that sends the payment to make your purchase, and then they collect the shipping information because they have your email, they send you an email, they complete the flow that way. There's people that are doing token swaps for their favorite SPL tokens. There's people are doing all sorts of crazy things. Liquid staking through Sanctum, buying NFTs off of Tensor, anything you can really, all the dApps that you know and love in the Solana ecosystem, the majority of them have already built and shipped Blinks that you can do some amount of interaction on the normal dApps that you know and love, just directly within a Blink currently on your Twitter feed or in a DM.
Just hearing you say this, how often has it been compared to like Farcaster and Frames? like the way that you're talking about this interaction where you can create games. Like, is that almost a very similar technology in its own right, or what are the differentiations there with how they interact?
So full disclosure, like I don't know much about how frames work. Like I've very quickly skimmed some information that some people had sent after we had kind of like launched actions. But from my understanding is the idea is pretty similar, where it's like you're providing a way for developers to build these experiences and for users to experience them, being able to interact with their whatever blockchain they want. Frames is on EVM chain, Solana actions are on Solana. There's definitely some differences though, where blinks and actions are relatively unopinionated about the UI layer. In fact, the actions and blink specification has no opinions on like how this should be displayed, except for like some generic things like, hey, you can have buttons and you can have text input sort of thing. But as far as like the limitations there, whereas Farcaster frames, I think you have to basically write your own entire React components in order to build them. And the big difference is that, at least from my understanding, is that Farcaster frames you're using the Farcaster protocol. You're using it just within the Farcaster ecosystem.
Yeah.
It's, I believe their term is sufficiently decentralized social network, where you have, people can create their own Farcaster clients, but ultimately you're still interacting with the Farcaster protocol. And typically those have a custodial wallet to some extent. You're not usually using your normal Web3 crypto wallet. And that's where Blinks and Actions really differ, is that with Blinks and Actions, you're using your normal Solana wallet. Whatever wallet you want to use, you're using that. And you're using the entirety of the Solana blockchain, not just one specific protocol that works on that chain, or on layer 2s or rollups or whatever. But you can use the entirety of the Solana blockchain, including all the developer experience that already exists, because ultimately you're just building a transaction and giving that to the user. But you also get the ability to, you're not fracturing liquidity, you're not fracturing the user experience. In fact, you're actually shortening the user experience journey for like time to success, time to interaction of all these protocols. Like you just scroll through Twitter or across the internet when these are enabled elsewhere, and you can just click right there and just use Solana. You can use blockchain wherever you're at.
No, I think it's incredibly smart, like the distribution model versus something like a Farcaster there, because you have to go to Farcaster, you have to go to their app. You have built something here, with the foundation team is like it's in the hands of the users already in Twitter.
Exactly.
So huge amount of distribution, and you've got this kind of, the classic Web3 mullet model where you've got Web2 in the front end and it's all Web3 in the back end, exactly how it's supposed to work. No, that's really cool, and thanks for kind of breaking that down there. We have a lot of developers on the call. A lot of them are here for going through our curriculum and from start to finish. We haven't got a module on Blinks, but can you tell us a bit about, or even provide some information about how our users can start getting involved and trying to build their own Blinks?
Yeah, absolutely. Another good question. So there's kind of two sides of that. There's one on the user side, like you're a person that uses crypto, you want to interact with these Blinks. And then on the developer side, you want to build your own, ship them for other people to use. So on the user side, if you go into your favorite Solana wallet right now, Phantom, Soulflare, or Backpack currently support them. Other wallet support is coming soon. You can go into the settings and you can go to, each of them kind of labels it something different, something to the effect of like experimental features. But you have to go into your wallet settings, your browser extension, wallet settings, and then you enable Blinks. You enable Blinks on X is sometimes when it's labeled. But you enable the setting and then it works. It just works out of the box. The browser extension already has your crypto keys. It's your normal wallet. You scroll through Twitter, and if you see it, if you come across any of these links, you'll just be able to interact with them directly right there, both on the Twitter feed and on inside of Twitter DMs, which is really fun and interesting. So you can do that now. And if you're using a different Solana wallet that's not one of those three, you can also use Dialect's custom extension, which is solely dedicated to Blinks. It's if you go to the Dialect's website, dial.to, they have links there to find it, but it's I believe it's called Dialect Blinks is the name of it. So that's the user side. Anyone can go do that. You don't have to be a developer. You just click a couple of settings, turn it on, and then you're good to go. Refresh the page, you're good to go. On the developer side, you need to write some code. luckily, there's a whole bunch of SDKs that us at Solana Foundation and Dialect have shipped. There's two primary SDKs that developers can and should use. One is the Solana Actions SDK, which is linked in the docs, and maybe we can put a link to that on the screen or something. But if you go to the normal Solana documentation, you can find the docs there for Blinks and Actions. And inside of it, it links out to the SDK. And basically, from a developer perspective, you're building a REST API. That's all you're doing. That's one of the really cool things about building actions and providing actions to Blink clients, is that you're just building a REST API. You're returning basically structured JSON as like your API response. And then with that, the first one is a GET response. You're returning basically the metadata, title, description, image that you want to just be displayed to the user. And then the user clicks a button, and then they ultimately will they'll send a post request to your server. Your post request gets the user's wallet address. So you build a transaction for whatever it is that you're trying to do, token swap, interacting with a protocol, claiming an NFT, whatever, staking natively, staking liquidly, anything you can do with a Solana transaction. You have the user's wallet address, you respond with a transaction, and the user now gets their wallet pop-up. They can sign the transaction or decline to sign the transaction. And it's kind of that simple. You can basically add it to a website with like 150 lines of code. And most of that is because I like using Prettier. So I have like auto formatting on my code. So it gives me extra spacing. But you could have that and like even less code. Within the Solana docs there that you can see on the screen, there's also some code examples that can kind of show what that looks like. And there's also a YouTube video, tutorial, all that good stuff. Developer experience.
Brilliant. Guys, head to that link and check it all out. You're on the forefront of something here. Of course, it's all about tinkering and building in public. It's how you get noticed. Even reaching out to tweets like Nick did with Chase, just trying things out, building stuff, putting it out onto Twitter or putting it anywhere. It gets you noticed. And this is at the forefront of Solana innovation right now. So give it a go along with our curriculum and let us know how it went. What's been the activity then? So since it launched, do you have any idea of metrics in terms of like numbers of people either building or interacting with Blinks?
Yeah. So if you go to dial.to, Dialect's interstitial website, it's basically like a developer tool and like a UI layer for using and interacting with Blinks. Tons of information on Dialect's involvement and all the public good SDKs and things that they've built. And on there, it says 232 Blinks have been submitted to the registry. Basically, because the way that Blinks work, it's just like a dApp. Effectively, it's a dApp that's like an API side of a dApp. Because of how that works, anyone can provide these transactions to users. So it's actually really, really hard to quantify how much on-chain activity has been delivered or who actually supports them. Because it's inherently like a decentralized protocol, just like blockchain. It's just a specification. So it's actually really, really hard to track how many people have built and interacted and shipped. But so the best estimate we have is a couple of hundred different protocols have built Blinks and like shipped them to the public. And each of those individual protocols and like websites, those dApps, can also have multiple Blinks within their website. So like, for example, my personal website has like 3 different actions that I built, live stream, open source, all that good stuff. Jupiter, like every single Jupiter swap link is technically a different Blink in action. Every single Tensor collection, every single liquid staking on Sanctum, Meteora, Drift, all of these like top protocols and dApps within the ecosystem, they've all shipped them. And then when users like interact with them, because they're just getting a transaction that interacts with the same on-chain protocols that they're already using, it's really hard to track to see like specific on-chain activity from actions and Blinks. So we're still trying to figure out some good ways to do some sort of like analytics on them. But social engagement has been pretty high.
We have a question from Nishant. Does it use Open Graph like Frames does?
It's a good question. So no, it does not use the Open Graph spec. for one reason is actually because of the way that the Open Graph spec kind of works and how blinks and actions work. It's actually a little bit inefficient. So we opted for a different way to use to sort of like discover. So basically how it works is that you have a website. If you want to enable blinks and actions, like take Jupiter, for example, jup.ag, everyone in the Solana ecosystem knows and loves Jupiter. You go to jup.ag and you select whatever 2 tokens you want to swap to. If you look at the URL, it's jup.ag/swap/USDC to Sol. You're doing a USDC to Sol swap. You have this URL now. When you share that URL, you effectively, what happens is Jupiter under the hood has effectively declared that they support the actions and blink specification by having an actions.json file. So instead of having every single individual page that they want to support, they have to add that custom Open Graph, specific Open Graph metadata for every single page. Effectively, you have this actions.json file at the root of the domain. So in this case, jup.ag/actions.json. And they basically map any of their URLs to their backend API. So you have this, you only have to deploy your API itself, which just returns a transaction in the metadata, and then a single JSON file that supports wildcards. So you have this JSON file, and basically it just says, hey, all of these URLs, send them to this API endpoint. That's all it is. So it's like 5 lines of code that become cacheable by Blink client, so you get a better user experience because it's faster. The developer experience is faster and easier because you're writing a simple JSON file that has like 4 lines of code if you only have like one action API or one action, one blink. Supports wildcards and all that stuff. So it makes it easier to maintain. You can do like a double asterisk wildcard and make it so you don't have to update every single page. You can update it in one place and just point to the same API endpoints. So it's actually a little bit easier than using Open Graph. Plus, when you're using Open Graph, a lot of the times when you try to fetch that data, you're getting way more data than you need. So if you think about, blockchain it's a global technology. Some people around the world, depending on where you are, you might not have a really good internet connection. You don't need to download extra data that you're not going to use. So by doing it this method, it's also more resource efficient too. So you're downloading less data on the network that like someone in a low data connectivity area in the world, they can still get the same pretty good user experience.
That's brilliant. Thanks, Nick. I hope that helped, Nishant. In terms of the URLs, how can everyone in crypto is paranoid? Any link that they want to click on, we'll be very careful about. So how do users ensure that when they're interacting with links, it's not a scam? What are the key things that they should be ensuring before they interact with any kind of link?
Yeah, great question. So user security, like security and safety is super, super important. This was a very, when we decided to like push this initiative forward, us at Solana Foundation and Dialect, we had a lot of conversations around this and how to make sure that everyone that interacts with blinks and actions can still do so safely, to the point of like, it's just like interacting with another dApp. So the things are, one, you're still effectively interacting with a dApp. Like they're publicly accessible URLs on the internet. They're websites that are giving you this metadata and these transactions. So they have a domain name, just like a dApp. If you go to jup.ag, you're on jup.ag as the domain. When you connect your wallets to these domains, wallets use services like Blowfish and Blockade and all these security protocols and safety features that they already have built. Those all still work. It's the same. It's effectively the exact same thing that from the user experience, like you still see the domain name, you still connect, those wallets still do all their security practices that you know and love, transaction simulation, attempting to figure out like different, attack vectors that bad people could try to do. Your wallets are already doing that. So this basically makes it so like you can take blinks and actions as like a dApp widget. And when you interact with it, you still get all the amazing security features and safety things that wallets already have built. So we get to like build on top of giants, build on top of the shoulders of giants. And kind of to answer the other part of your question of like, what should you do? Just like if you're connecting to a dApp on the internet, don't connect to domains you don't trust. Don't go to websites you don't trust. If you get a transaction that looks suspicious, most wallets will show, error messages and warning messages and things like that. Read those, listen to those. Like if the wallet says that, hey, this might be suspicious or is flagging it, take that into consideration when you're interacting with these dApps, just like you're interacting with any other dApp across the internet. Don't use websites you don't trust. Don't sign transactions from sources you don't trust, just like the rest of Web3.
That's brilliant. And utilizing the wallet's own security measures there as well is very, very helpful. Well, last question, which is, I don't know how much you can even give away, because maybe it's on the lowdown until it happens, but can you tell us anything about like upcoming developments or features or integrations?
You want the roadmap?
What's on the cards next? Yeah, not the full.
Yeah. So, I can say some things. First thing is other platforms. Is definitely something that I am personally pushing. Like, I really want to see other platforms aside from just Twitter and X, but also mobile. This actually, I think Dialect posted something about this earlier today. Dialect is building a React Native SDK, and I think it's going to launch soon. They were teasing it out on their Twitter. At Say Dialect is their Twitter handle. They built an open source SDK that anyone can add blinks and actions natively within mobile apps, and that's really amazing. So that's first of all, that's coming. Other platforms, other operating systems like mobile, and then on one of my primary focuses is actually the action specification. So we're pushing for, definitely, we've it's been about a month since this launched to the public, and we've gotten a lot of feedback from people of things that they want to do within blinks and actions, and like new experiences that can be unlocked. And we have a short list of basically specification updates, features to add within the specification to help support some of these experiences. There's 3 big ones right now, and 2 of them, they already have an open SRFC. So you can go to forum.solana.com, public forum, anyone can look at them, open conversations about these protocol changes for actions. The first one is input types. Right now, with the current version 2.0 of the action spec, you can do a form input. You can have basically like a 10 input form. If you go to whatever website you're used to seeing forms on the internet, you can do that within Blinks, but you only get a unstructured text input. So it kind of leads to a less good user experience, because you can't specifically say like, hey, I want an email, I want a URL, I want a drop down. So we're adding that, as developers will be able to specify more structured input. So that way, ultimately, the user experience gets improved. So new input types, including like radio buttons and checkboxes, like anything you can build within a form, almost, you could do within a blink and an action. So that's the first one. That one, hopefully, the official spec will be approved here soon. Spec change will be approved soon. The next one is action chaining. So right now, blinks and actions, you get basically one transaction gets sent back to the user. They can either sign or decline, and that's the end of the experience. They continue scrolling, they go on to other things. With action chaining, it makes it so a single blink can continually provide a transaction, and they can update all the metadata that the user sees. So if you take it from the perspective of building these games, like a game and a blink, you could have, maybe your game is like like a tug of war. You want to go left or right, you want to pull left, pull right. User gets the transaction, they sign it, send it to the blockchain, it confirms. Now with action chaining, whenever these features go live, with action chaining, you'll be able to continually give the user updated information and ultimately give them a new transaction. So in theory, you could have like an entire game dedicated within this single blink UI that the user continually gets to keep processing through the game, executing actions and transactions. Another example for that I like to give is e-commerce. With the idea of action chaining, e-commerce becomes like wide open for blinks and actions.
Yeah.
Like right now, if take Keystone, for example, like I mentioned earlier, they sold physical devices to ship to people around the world by making their purchase through a blink. They collect their email address and they collect payment in the first action, and that's where the journey stops within the blink. They then send an email, they collect shipping address there. Imagine if they were able to check their system to see if they already have your shipping address, your physical shipping address. If they still need that information, they can then return that request to you and say, hey, we need your shipping address. Give us your shipping address directly here in the blink in order for us to ship this physical product to you. Things like that really become huge unlocks in this this ecosystem that is being built around Blinks, and the amount of things that you'll be able to do with them becomes really, really interesting. Yeah, I'm really excited about that one.
We've had the guys from Solana Mobile on, and obviously their chapter 2 is launching soon. Don't know if you guys are doing a collab there in terms of already, pre-built Blinks into any of the social media apps on there. Is that a collaboration just waiting to happen? I imagine it is.
Yeah, I don't personally know. Like Solana Mobile is from Solana Labs, separate company. I don't really interact with them very much. The idea is really cool. I think the hard thing is like there's a lot of technical feats that need to like occur in order for that to be true, because the way that Blinks and Actions work right now, it's browser extensions are injecting this UI for a mobile app. The mobile app developers themselves have to basically add this feature in. So if you think like Twitter on mobile, the Twitter developers need to add in Blinks to have it natively within their mobile app. Same thing with Instagram or whatever mobile apps you want. And that's kind of a big ask, not gonna lie. Like we recognize that. We want it for sure. That'd be amazing. But you have to encourage every single individual application, mobile application, to add support on an individual basis. And that's definitely an uphill battle. But when we have things like the Saga dApp Store, where you have Web3 focused applications, all of these applications are already Web3, they're already crypto, they're already using Solana, they're already familiar with the stack. I personally think it's very reasonable for them and relatively easy with Dialects SDKs to actually add in Blink support natively within their application. There's actually a couple of teams that are building like Blink focused super apps on Solana. After Blinks and Actions kind of dropped to the public, a couple of teams were like, holy crap, let's build a super app, and they're chugging away on their code. I've seen some screenshots and they look pretty cool. Yeah.
Wow. I mean, there's so many ways this can go. Nick, thank you so much for joining this call. Guys, if you have any last questions, chuck them in the chat. We have one from Nyan asking, I completed my master's in data science and bachelor's in computer science. I'm looking for opportunities in data-related fields. Are there any opportunities at Calyptus? Yes, we have a few on the platform right now. Head to calyptus.co, chuck in your CV, your LinkedIn, and it pulls all your data, puts it into a profile. You can start proving your verifications, your credentials on the platform. You can start learning the likes of Rust with Solana. You can start learning Ethereum. You can do everything from the career hub that we have there, and we have jobs and data. So yes, Nyan, jump in. I think that might be all our questions. Nick, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Super exciting. And yeah, hopefully come on again in a few months' time. We have an update on all these different things that you've been building within the Solana dev team, and an update on progress. Yeah,
absolutely. I'd love to come back. And I'll do one shameless plug. We've got Solana Breakpoint is coming up around the corner. If people are interested in going to the official Solana conference, it's going to be in Singapore this year, which is really exciting. You can find out more on solana.com/breakpoint. There's going to be some interesting things going on around Blinks and Actions.
You heard it now. Everyone's got FOMO. That's brilliant, Nick. Well, cheers, guys. Thanks for joining. Our cohort 12 is now officially open. Dive on in. If you need any help along the way, our Discord is open. Nick, thanks again. All the best.
Thank you.